Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michael Preston. Thank you so much for spending some time with us this afternoon. We are here to discuss cultivating citizenship through digital connections. It's a topic that we collectively think about a lot and are excited about, and I hope you have questions about what it all means, maybe at the word-by-word level. There's a lot to unpack in this title. I'll introduce my panelists here in just a minute. Just a word about who I am and who we are. My name is Michael. I lead a research and innovation lab inside Sesame Workshop called the Joan Ganz Cooney Center. It's named after Joan, who started Sesame in the 1960s. And the idea at the time of using the new and emerging media of that day, television, to help kids was a revolutionary idea in many ways. It predates a lot of what we know about emerging media and what it could be for people. Public television also arose around the same time. And so it's really building on her initial vision and the methods of Sesame that we adopt to help the rest of the tech and media field for kids try to set a higher bar and to get to that higher bar. And so that's enough about us. Feel free to talk to me afterwards if you would like to learn more. But a lot of the projects that I'll talk about today are from that. So to my right here is Michael Rich, who is from Boston Children's Hospital and the Digital Wellness Lab. He's both an adolescent pediatrician, adolescent medicine specialist, but at the same time also runs his own research lab within the hospital that really partners with industry to do right by kids as well. And so in some ways we are, not only do we share a first name, we share a passion for bridging, for translating the work of research, creating new research and getting others to adopt it in their practice. Next in line is Jeff Burrell from Riot Games. Jeff leads social impact in numerous ways across the company, maybe some of which will emerge from what he talks about here today. So Riot Games, as you know, is a video game company. Its games are played globally by millions of people, and Jeff gets to wield that enormous community and the power of these captivating digital experiences for people to do good in the world. And then last but not least, Tammy Baumick is the head of Civility. Civility and Partnerships, I think, is in your title as well, so maybe we can talk more about what that is. But civility is kind of a part of the theme for this conversation. And so Roblox, as many of you know, also a massively played platform, tons of games played by 100 million people, 3 million, 300 million, 70, okay. Daily, 70.
Over 70 million daily active
70 million
users.
daily, yeah. That's a marvel, and it is the place where kids are today. If any of you have young people in your lives, whether you're your own kids or your neighbor's kids or students in your classroom, that is where kids are today. So we have one end of the spectrum, which is research and nonprofit focus on supporting the lives of kids, and then we have two representatives from industry who have just a massive community around their work already, but also are there to leverage that for good. So let's dig in. Okay, great. Everybody has their water and their microphone. We're ready. So first question. Let's get into terms here. What does citizenship mean for you in your work, and how does that connect to community? Both of these terms are used a lot these days. Citizenship, obviously, in the public sphere, as well as this idea of a digital citizenship and what it means to behave well in a positive way. And then community also means a lot. I, in some ways, have to edit my papers to remove the word community a few times because there's only so many times you can say community. Who'd like to begin?
I'll start. So for those of you who are maybe a little less familiar with Roblox, we are a technology platform that offers free tools for anybody to be able to create experiences. These experiences are born out of their imagination, and today Roblox has actually been around for 20 years. Believe it or not, it's been around for a very, very long time, but it really, really took off probably in around 2015, 2016. All of the experiences on Roblox are created by users, developers, creators to be able to create. And now we have millions of different experiences, from traditional games to role-playing games, hangout games. So as mentioned, we have now over 70 million daily active users on the platform. The vision of the company has always been around being able to connect and form community with optimism and a feeling of safety. And at the end of the day, you cannot have civility if you don't feel safe, right? So we really, really focus on making sure that we're continuing to innovate and that our work is never done, continuing to innovate on the tools that allow people to feel safe. My role for civility is really closing up the gap between generations. And my team and I focus on education and making sure that all of our community is digitally literate. And what does that mean? Media literacy is so important as part of the puzzle. So it's not just industry's responsibility, it's parents' responsibility, it's teachers' responsibility, it's legislators' responsibility. Without all of them working together, it doesn't work. So in terms of citizenship, how we look at it at Roblox is really empowering and helping our communities to thrive.
I'll just continue on down the line then. So one of the things that I think about in terms of citizenship is we often get asked, oh, I want you to remove the bad. This person was a no-goodnik in my game. You should punish him. Bring out the ban hammer. And I like to think of it in terms of like kind of a little bit more broad. So quick poll of the audience. Who here has ever been cut off in traffic by another driver? Yeah, right. Okay. Now, that's a bad thing. Who here has accidentally cut someone else off at some point? Be honest. Thank you. So that kind of goes to show that not everybody has bad intentions all the time. Sometimes these things just are, someone maybe had a bad day, someone maybe just decided to choose violence that morning, It's a lot of different reasons, but like these little nudges that you can make along the way in order for people to be more resilient as part of their community, more encouraging, and like behavioral economics help nudge them to help others. That's kind of how we think about it, because in games, it's not just a monolith, right? It's not just like all gamers are of the same ilk. There's a lot of subgenres. I don't know if anyone here has ever been to a fighting game tournament live in person. Anyone? The smack talk that you hear from that community, and they love it. It's like the punk rock equivalent of video game events. There's like a mosh pit there. Now, why is that okay? But you wouldn't want to have a mosh pit at, say, the opera, right? It's because that community has also self-reinforcing norms and behaviors. So when we think about citizenship, we think about, okay, well, what are like the norms of the community? How do we enforce those? And more importantly, like what Tammy was talking about, how do we show what good examples look like? Because often we know that we're not supposed to cut people off in traffic, but sometimes that just happens. So how do we start to correct people so they're self-regulating among themselves and not just wanting someone with a ban hammer or someone with punitive measures to come down on them? It's also like reinforcing those positive examples and behaviors over time. And that's really how we start to think about like the long-term view and the health of our communities.
So I don't approach this as an industry person. I approach this as a parent, as a pediatrician, and as someone who cares about kids. I also approach this not as an issue of the digital space, but as an issue of the entire environment that kids grow up in, which is a seamless physical digital environment. They move back and forth between the two. So citizenship needs to be the same. It needs to be consistent in that. And they don't feel powerful. So first of all, we've got to remind them that they are powerful, and that they are also the owners and caretakers of this environment, and that they have the power to make it what they want it to be, rather than feeling put upon like they have to play defense all the time. They can lean into this, and they can make this environment a healthier and smarter and kinder place by their own behavior. So it really is not about sort of rules from on high coming down, but our expectations of each other. And I'm speaking as one of the kids. One of the things I always say to parents who are saying, how do I create media rules in my household? I say, don't create rules, because rules are from on high, the authoritarian down, and their rules are, at least when I was a kid, rules are made to be broken, basically. But have expectations, not just of the kids, but of each other, the kids of the parents as well. And the real kicker here is, think back to when you were a kid. It was way easier to have mom pissed off at you for breaking a rule than to have her disappointed in you that you didn't meet expectations. That lingers, that sticks. And it's gentler because it's shared. And that's ultimately what citizenship and community are about, is this is a shared space, and we are all responsible for it. So that means that we call ourselves out, we call each other out, not in punitive ways, but in, that hurt me, or that was upsetting to that other person. Can you do it another way? And one of the things that plays out in this is that I try to help kids realize they're responsible for each other. And one of the problems that we're having right now is that kids will block bad actors, but they won't report them. They will protect themselves, but not others. And we've got to get them out of the head that reporting is, tattling on somebody, and into reporting is making your society, your community better.
That's a great example. I actually want to come back to affordances a little bit later in our conversation. That's just such a good example, though, of how behaviors can be kind of shaped or something we should learn from. But one thing I wanted to note is I heard across your thoughts just now, both, Tammy, you talk about digital literacy, media literacy as a set of skills that the young person or the player needs to develop and utilize to have a successful or high quality experience within a digital space. Jeff, you highlighted that the norms of a space may vary based on the context, right? What's expected given the kind of design of a space. And we could probably come up with several other kind of elements of citizenship, like the sort of canonical set of practices that people should just have and internalize, a specific set of skills that go with the environment, but then also that it's okay to have differential kind of ways of thinking about that based on the space. One of our colleagues calls video games social infrastructure, which I think is so interesting, that's for kids especially, they don't necessarily think about, oh no, I'm going to do the digital thing. It's actually just the thing, and can be fairly fluid between digital and non-digital. And so I think some of what I'd like to talk about maybe here is how you've experienced these digital spaces and not digital in ways that really support those good citizenship behaviors or even connection, just generally.
So again, I'll dive in. So with Roblox and what I do heading up civility, it's really all about modeling what can be done in the digital environment to promote good. And what that involves is, we're very lucky to be a very well-recognized brand that other brands want to work with. So we have incredibly talented developers. I connect developers with brands who are wanting to do really great things. So as an example, Alo Yoga, I don't know if anyone's heard of Alo Yoga. They have a line of exercise wear that's like fabulous. But just a little shout out to Alo Yoga. But they are all about mindfulness and really prioritizing yourself. And so much of youth, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, you know that mental health is a major concern globally, right? It is, our young people are very, very challenged right now at this time in our world. And so Alo Yoga created this beautiful, beautiful experience. You walk in and you're able to meditate, and you're able to take a moment in this beautiful, relaxing place and just take a moment. We have had, in the first week that it was announced, we had 8 million kids go, and I should say young people, go in and meditate, many of those for the first time. And the feedback that we got was, my parents are getting divorced, they're yelling at each other all the time, and I went to this peaceful place. I've never tried meditation, and it was so powerful, and it brought me peace. And so there was just so much feedback just like that from the people who were in the experience. So we try to promote and lay out opportunities for brands that they had never even thought of that would actually drive traffic. And from a business perspective, it does such good things, right? It makes it engagement stronger, brand trust. It does so much from a business standpoint. It's very difficult to argue that it's a good thing. So by modeling, that's something that we really focus on.
Tammy, I was curious. That's such an interesting example and also an interesting way to bring in partners into the experience. Given how many developers create games and other playful experiences on the platform, is there a genre? Like if I'm a kid and I want to play a cozy game or know that I'm trying to decide how I want to set my mood by the game I choose to play. Is there a way to do
mac and cheese genre right there,
Totally.
Comfort food genre.
Yeah, I hope there's a mac and cheese genre somewhere. So what's the mac and cheese genre equivalent like on Roblox when I want to go have something comforting?
So here's Roblox has millions of different experiences. So what's right for you and is comfortable for you is probably different than what you find to be comfortable and warm and cozy. You can find anything. So, there are hangout, different experiences where you can just like hang out and meet new people and try different outfits. We just did a Gen Z research study, which was really, really interesting. And that we found out that Gen Zers are going into Roblox to test their self-identity. They're creating their avatars that they are creating. It's something that they take very personally, and it's very, very real. For many of us, it's like, what are they doing? They're like dressing up these avatars, but for them, it's very, very significant. It's a way for them to really create their own self-identity in a safe place. And what we're finding from the research is that over 50% are taking that self-identity that they're creating and testing and getting feedback from the community in Roblox into their real lives, because they're giving the self-confidence online to be able to take that into the real world. And that comes, especially true with the LGBTQIA community and tweens who are just coming into their own and trying to figure out, do they want to be the preppy or do they want to be the sports kid? What do they want to look like, right? And there's no fear of retribution online by trying different personas. So that's just one way that a lot of these Gen Zers are using the online platforms like Roblox to be able to test things. And I think it's really important and very, very, very healthy.
Jeff, do you have any thoughts about that kind of question about supporting the sort of, I know you have at Riot, there's a massive community of developers that make all these games. In terms of norm setting, I think I wanted to go a level deeper on that and how you think about it and how, I don't want to say that Riot is a monolithic, kind of all the games have a certain characteristic, but how do you sort of think about that as a company and maybe what might you see in some of the different games?
Yeah, that's a really good point because, like I said earlier, certain games have their own subcultures, of what is encouraged and supported. Most of our games, if not all of them now, are team-based competitive games, which lends to some really interesting dynamics. And the first is that we found is if you play with someone you're really going to have a much better time. The losses sting a little bit less because you can always say, oh, my friend and I did well, it was the jungler. You always blame the jungler. Or if it were, you playing by yourself, you tend to not communicate as much to others. And so there are some standards that you do want to set, right? Like, imagine you're going to play a game of pickup basketball. 5-on-5. You don't really know anyone else on the court. You know, you don't have someone who just like takes the basketball and throws it off the court and says, "This is my game. You know, now you go get it." Like, no one will have a good time. That person will be ostracized. So it's really then setting the expectation of, you know, what does good sportsmanship look like in these? How do we find role models within the professional scene that we could highlight and talk about how they keep a cool head during times of intense competition? And then it's also understanding that, you know, sometimes people have a bad game, and not saying anything bad is the best that we can expect, and that's good enough, you know. And so what we do is we try and reward people based on those behaviors in game. So if you behave well and your teammates recognize you and support you and said you were a great leader, you were really supportive, all of that, they can give you like a kudos at the end of the game. That will then accelerate your honor level, and the higher that gets, the more free rewards you get in the game. So it's a pretty powerful incentive for people to like want to, you know, flex and to show like how high their honor level got. And then if you are very toxic and very disruptive, there are of course the punitive and stick measures that go along with that. But what we found is that over time, people always want to try, 95% of people, I should say, always want to strive to be the best competitor and person that they can be and teammate. And we want to reward them for that too.
I was curious if I'm a first-time player, and again, not to generalize, you could pick an example if you want to, but how would I know that I need to adopt a certain kind of community set of rules or norms of behavior that may not be evident right away, or like how does that happen?
Yeah, we have like a what we call a summoner's code, you know, sort of as you go through and you read like, hey, here's sort of what's expected. A lot of it is, if you are a brand new player, is pacing and saying, you know, you're not going to just jump into a ranked game right away. You know, first learn the rules, play with others, and you kind of get those feedback loops. But one of the best examples, I think, isn't with us. Has anyone here played or heard of the game Sea of Thieves? It's an open pirate game. It's so lovely. But every time you start this game, you wake up in a bar on some deserted island, and it's randomized.
Or in Austin, Texas.
Or in Austin, Texas.
It was like last night for all
How
of
did
you,
I
right?
get here? And so as you walk out and you go to your ship, there's always, as you're leaving, like the pirate code. And it talks about what's expected. It's like, you know, you're a pirate. You're playing with other pirates, but then also treat people, you know, with respect and everything like that. So if you have these reinforcing mechanisms and always making it kind of like visual for them, that is like the best community in a video game I've been a part of, because it's exactly how it would play out. Sometimes they're pirates and they take it. Other times they'll be on a ship, drive up next to you, want to drink grog, and play the ukulele. It's amazing. And so because of them making this set of norms very apparent, you have to buy in, you have to like acknowledge that, it creates then that reinforcing behavior that you see with other players in the game too.
And then can I just double click? I really want to, I hate that word that term double click. I hate it. Erase that. I didn't say that. I think you made a really, really great point. Citizenship doesn't mean kindness in the way that, so I think that's a really important distinction, because even on Roblox, right, we don't think citizenship necessarily means you have to be nicey nice, kind. It has to be done in the context of the experience itself. But what we do expect is respect and inclusion. And that's how we look at citizenship and civility at Roblox, and I think for Riot as well.
Michael, I was curious, you know, I don't know what video games you're playing these days, but I know in your practice you talk to a lot of kids about their use of digital media of all kinds, and I was curious if there are certain themes that come up again and again where kids may talk, even when they might be struggling, that they talk about things that they like, that are positive, that actually help them, that may align with some of the things that our colleagues here were talking about too.
As I'm sure it won't surprise you, I talk about them as individuals who live in this digital physical environment. And I think one of the ways that kids get in trouble with this is they forget that who they're playing with are kids just like them. they sort of treat others as NPCs, you know, in a way, right, to be beaten. And they feel like there's no blame or there's no problem with harming others. And so I try to sort of ground them in the, how can you feel about this person as another person? And how would you feel if you were treated the way you're treating them? You know, sort of the do unto others as you would have them do unto you thing. And to have them realize that there are real repercussions to what they do and say, even though they can switch the game off and go to bed or, you know, do something else. That real hurt is being had. And so one of the things that I talk about with kids, you brought this up with the yoga thing, is I tell them, instead of searching for your killer apps, let's develop our killer bees. The killer bees are, be mindful in our use of our digital world or digital tools in that world, but also be mindful of yourself and in your world. Be balanced. Know that, you know, that it isn't necessarily toxic to be in the digital space, but be aware of what you're not doing because you're in that digital space. Are you not sleeping? Are you not doing your homework? Are you not being with your family or friends? Are you not just taking a moment to live and reflect and think? And finally, and most importantly, to be present. I think this is something also I really hammer on the parents about, which is I'll ask my patients when their parents are out of the room the somewhat subversive question of, what could your parents do better? And almost invariably, the first thing out of their mouths is, pay more attention to me. They're staring at their phone. They're staring at their laptop. They're not paying attention to me. So I think that being present is something that we don't think about consciously, but we have to, because this is so seductive to be in this space and to be anybody you want to be. But as Tammy says, to try out being a lot of different people, but ultimately to be true to yourself.
I want to go even further on that theme, maybe around if kids are looking for the presence of the adults in their lives, and by extension probably others as well. Sometimes, you know, I don't practice meditation, at least not yet, but maybe I should.
You may need to after
may
this.
Need to, yeah. But I think, you know, we learned from the Tibetan meditation school that empathy and caring for others is a big driver of well-being. Is that something that shows up in these games? And not just, I mean, we don't have to only talk about games, although I think that's a big part of especially kids' experience, the sort of digital play experience. But like, how does that show
Can I
up for you?
start with that?
Yeah, please.
Reverse the order for once. Yes. I think empathy for others starts with empathy for yourself, right? Just like love for others starts with love for yourself. And allowing that to be translated outward from you, that ultimately what you realize is that even though much of our lives, school, et cetera, is built around competing with others, that what really is satisfying, what really gives you happiness, is someone else smiling, someone else kind of getting you and feeling your presence. So I think that it's absolutely right that it's important to empathize for others, but also this empathy for oneself I equate to, you know, when the oxygen masks fall down, put yours on first, because you're no good to others until you do that.
I think to build on, Michael, what you said of making others smile and bringing that empathy, in a very competitive, sweaty game, you know, sometimes that's asking a little much. But what we found is that through the community, if anyone here is like part of a gamer community, you know that they're really opinionated and they're not shy about it. But there's also just a tremendous amount of care and empathy and identity within them and among each other. And so one of the things that we found is when we actually ask players if they want to give back and to help a cause or to, mobilize to do some good in the world, they respond en masse. And not only that, but then they will reach out to us and say, what are you doing? How can we help through the game or through the products or through our communities for helping other people in need? And this is, I think, gaming's true superpower. It's because it's not just a product. It's a subculture. It's a type of being, and it's like this identity where you could just be walking down the street in Shanghai, see someone wearing like your favorite esports team, and you do the head nod. You're just like, yeah, I see you. That was a tough loss. But you know that because of that and your identity, that you can have like broad collective impact. And if you sort of like bring that loop to them and say like, because of you, we were able to save, so many forests or trees or build so many wells or kind of like create that social impact, it fills them with a deep sense of emotional connectiveness, not only to each other, but then also like to that community as well. So I think that's like really important because like I've seen with players over and over again, they'll be like, oh no, they see through all of the BS. But if someone is coming to their town to watch like one of their favorite teams play, they're like, yeah, you can crash on my couch. It's just like these total handshakes of camaraderie that is you don't see in any other industry. It's amazing.
So continuing this theme, I'll take it, instead of talking about our players, I'm going to talk about our developer community, which is, there are millions of them. And one of the things that's so unique about Roblox that I love so much is this camaraderie of community. And so on the developer side, there's a little, we offer free tools. We have a developer forum where you can learn things from each other, but you're kind of on your own, and you're learning how to code, and you're trying to learn how to use the tools. When people run into problems or they come up with some sort of code that like there's a bug, they can't figure it out, and they post it, it is en masse, and no one's getting paid. They're not paying each other. They're literally offering lines of code. Dude, this is how I solved it. I'm actually copying and pasting my code so you can use it. Good luck, right? So there's this camaraderie within our developer community that's, I think, really, really, really unique. On the user side, and again, I've heard this time and time and time again, because people on Roblox tend to be teens, tweens, and kids, they are still finding their identity. And I can't tell you how many people have come to me to say, listen, I don't know where I would be right now. I was in a really dark place, and I always felt ostracized. I always felt on the outside in the real world. I didn't really have many friends. And I came to Roblox, and I found my people. I found my community. And that's where they were starting to feel good about themselves, learning about themselves, their self-esteem. So I do think that at Roblox, because you can find anything on the platform that serves your interests, you can find your community there.
Can I add one thing to that? I flash back on the DevCon you asked me to speak to, the developers conference for the Roblox developers. And Tammy just said, come in and share what you know. What was really interesting, it was all virtual, it was during COVID, was we had, 600 some online at the same time. Within about 5
This was an optional lunch and learn, by the way. Nobody had to come. It was optional.
But the crazy thing was I started talking, and within 5 or 10 minutes, it became this giant group therapy session where these kids were saying, I feel so alone. I'm sitting in the dark, I'm coding, and I don't know who's out there. I don't know who's hearing me, who's seeing me, who's being with me. And I think that what it revealed was their longing for connectedness, but also all of our mistaking of connectivity as connectedness. Connectivity is not connectedness in the sense of the deep and sustaining and meaningful connectedness we have with family, friends, and I think that needs to be consciously built in the digital environment, as opposed to just assuming, oh, well, I have 200 people playing my game, so I must be connected. They were left feeling empty in some ways, and we really did some deep digging that day for some hard work on how can we be more human to ourselves and each other in this space.
That's actually a great bridge to another topic. Thank you, Michael. Well, I think what's challenging right now is a good conversation to have. Maybe I think we've tried to paint a sunny perspective of the opportunities in these digital spaces. There's a lot of them. I think, as everyone in the room I'm sure knows, the narrative around mental health and well-being is appropriately negative in a lot of cases. There's a lot of work to do. But so I think having lighthouses and really positive examples of what kids are finding meaningful and purposeful for them and helpful are helpful. I was curious to know, for folks in the room who maybe make things or are planning to utilize a particular tool for the work they want to do with kids or people of all ages, what's hard, or what do we need to focus on that we're just not doing a good enough job yet?
Oh my God, how much time do you all have? There's so much that we're not getting right.
Yeah, you have to pick.
Well,
I mean, so
unfortunately.
much.
Yeah.
Part of what we're not getting right is look at how many empty chairs are in this room.
Yeah.
Why is it that this subject that is so important?
I prefer quality over quantity. I think all of these people
No, you
are
guys
No,
have
I
like
like
the
you. They're
highest
so great.
quality bar.
Absolutely, you're the
Cheers to
vanguard,
you.
but this is a commentary on all of us as a society that this is not prioritized, right? Until things are desperate, and then they show up on my doorstep. Hi.
We asked ChatGPT.
But the free version. So
I think
Yeah, it's 3. Yeah, it's not so good.
we had a last minute panel swap out due to an illness, and so Michael Rich, our colleague here, graciously joined us, which is one benefit, and took us in a more of a wellness direction maybe than we originally planned. But I think generally this is just where our head is going. If you say digital interactions, it's hard not to talk about wellness. So you're right. This is a little bit of a misnomer or misdirection in the title.
But I think you're absolutely right. And we're like our show. We're like on the road. I think in the future, I think that we need to be digital citizenship. I think you're right. It's kind of weird. People are like, "What's that?" Right? I think we need to be very much more transparent in terms of like health and safeguards and things like that. So, point
Yeah,
well
thank you
taken.
for that comment. Yeah.
We don't market ourselves well.
We will have a Q&A in a few minutes, but first we have to hear these folks give us some juicy ideas.
I actually, kind of going on that, like what barriers do people face? Is anyone in this room a developer or a designer? Okay, so God bless, you're on the front lines.
Come work with us, please.
You're the ones who are
Roblox is hiring.
actually designing systems that people will use to interact with one another. That's an awesome responsibility. But what I found is that often the designers aren't the ones who allocate budget or can get what they need to get. And they're like, oh, if I could only just do this. Sorry, we got to ship. So I know you didn't want to do any math today, but bear with me. Here's a life hack to get any executive producer on board. User acquisition, right? How much you advertise to get new users. It's not uncommon for major studios to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. That's a lot of cheese. So hypothetically, let's say we have $300 million that we spend on user acquisitions. Of those, let's say we lose, 10%? And that's probably conservative. 10% of players who will leave your game because of disruptive behavior, because of toxicity and bad system design. $30 million that you're losing. Now, what if you can actually just say, I don't think I can save all of those 10%, but what if I could save 1% of that? with just a couple little designs, a little bit of nudges here and there. 1% of that then is, oh goodness, help me out. We'll go back from there. From the top, that's like $3 million a year that you could potentially be saving. Now, if you then go to the executive producer, you're like, I just need 2-3 designers to help me think through these social systems to make them more inclusive and resilient. We're talking, what, $500,000 to save $3 million a year? Take that bet. And if the executive producer won't, have them call me, please. That's the easiest return on investment you can think of. So it's really good business to do. You just need to know where to plug in, and it's further upstream before things are like on fire and the servers are upside down.
So it's about user retention as well. Very much, you don't have to acquire those again.
Exactly.
So you mentioned what are the problems. Here are some of the problems. So one, the legislative environment is really messed up right now, right? And this is a global thing. There's the Online Harms Bill. There's the Digital Safeties Act. Our government in the U.S. is like trying to fight each other. The Fed can't figure things out at the moment. Each state is legislating their own. What is the definition of a minor, right? Everybody has different viewpoints. A lot of different states are saying, shut it down, take it away, close your eyes. That is putting our children and our youth at risk. Empowerment and thriving does not mean taking things away. Our role as parents is to not take away the device, right? It's to put it in our child's hand and teach them how to use it. And so by closing doors, taking things away, we are putting our children at massive, massive disadvantage. We need to teach them, and again, in terms of teaching adults, parents and teachers, how to do that, right? Talking to them very honestly about some of the ills and some of the challenges that every one of us sees every single day. The phishing, the scamming, the calls that we're getting. How do you handle that? Inappropriate images that they may come across on the internet, and they will. It's the internet. Instead of reeling back from it and having that toxicity impact their mental health, talk to them about it. Be really, really upfront so that they are aware of the ills and know how to report it, know how to block it, and know how to mentally process it, right? So with the legislation that we have going on right now, a lot of my time is spent in Washington, D.C., and that is talking to Senate staffers, talking to the Hill, to make sure that they understand the unintended consequences of the acts that they are passing. Everyone talks about privacy, right? Privacy is great. If I ask you as a parent, do you care about the privacy of your child? You're going to go, of course I care about the privacy of my child. What are you talking about? It's so important. But do you know what that actually means to industry? That means that we can't see the perpetrators. We can't see the pedophiles. We can't see them because privacy is enacted and we're like this. So when something bad happens, law enforcement comes to us and says, can you hand over the records? We're like, no, because you passed legislation that made us unable to see. So that's just one example that I'm talking about of unintended consequences from seemingly good actions. So until we figure out how to work together, industry, legislators, parents, and educators, we're not going to be able to solve this problem and create a world that's thriving.
Can I step on one thing you said, which is, not step on it, continue it. Talk to your kids. It's so important. We have to parent them in the digital space, and part of that is knowing when they are not yet ready for this very powerful tool we're putting in their hands. You know, just because your 4-year-old is flipping out doesn't mean you hand them a smartphone, right? Because you have to think about both short and long-term results of that. And with other powerful tools like driving a car or using a power tool, we wait until they need that tool, something that tool can do that nothing else can do, where they can handle it responsibly and with respect for themselves and others. And we have to constantly be talking to them, back and forth. And we have to talk to them so they will listen, and more importantly, listen to them so they will talk.
Michael, I really appreciate how you keep bringing us back to this fundamental aspect of human connection that kind of gets lost in when we talk about digital, that our digital experience is mediated often by the tried and true connections that we have in our world, which hopefully we have. Not every kid has that deep connection with a parent, but like all of this exists in a broad ecosystem. I should also mention that Dr. Rich has a book out on the very topic that he's just mentioning here, and you have a signing this afternoon?
Yeah, 4:30.
4:30?
Room 10C in the convention center.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll make it fun for you, I promise.
Yeah, it's always fun with Michael. But I think that's a larger point that maybe we should wrap up a little bit and go to Q&A since folks, do folks have questions? Because we can just keep talking unless folks have questions. Raise your hand if you have a question.
All right, there's a mic right there.
There's 2. Do I hear 3? Okay, so 2 questions. We can talk a little longer then, but this idea of that it's complicated, that it is this ecosystem approach, that everybody has a role in it, and that maybe each needs to be supported more and acknowledge more how to make it better along the way.
I do think we do make a couple of mistakes. One is we cannot assume that every child has a loving, connected, concerned parent. But that means that we have to be the village. We have to be the global village that raises the child. And I think that what every kid needs and usually can find is an adult that's just crazy about them. It might be a coach, it might be a teacher, it may not be a parent. The other part of it is that I think a lot of parents in this digital age have checked out of being in that space with their kids because, oh, the kid's so much smarter than I am. They know how to make everything work, this, that, and the other. This is their space. I don't feel competent going in there. And a lot of that, quite honestly, is driven by their ego because they need to be smarter than and teaching the kid as opposed to learning from the kid. And we have to insist as much as we can that parenting has to happen in the entire space this child lives in.
I also think it's, it's up to industries. Industry has a responsibility because a lot of these young people don't have the traditional supportive nuclear family. They turn to online platforms, right, for community and for help. And so because we know that they're there, we need to be able to offer support, accessible, transparent support where it's needed. And I think that the optimist in me says that with the advent of AI, the online world can be safer and more civil. We are looking at things and we're getting incredible data right now on nudging, right? So if if the system detects any sort of toxic behavior, cries out for help in terms of self-harm or suicide, there are things that can be done that provides messaging and links to support services for the person. And so I do think that as we evolve our AI models, we will be able to create systems that can be helpful. Now, we all know that AI, there's the good, there's the bad, and there's the very ugly, right? And so I do think for those of you who are designers and developers, it'll be an interesting experiment over the next year or two how that evolves. And I think that there is a responsibility for all of us in the room to make sure that we're watching it go, pushing it into the most positive place.
I think we have to understand, though, that everybody defines positive differently, right? And it's an incredibly powerful tool for propaganda, and so remember, AI starts with humans. That are putting those large language models together. And if those humans are racist or if those humans are sexist, that's going to be reflected in it. And I think one of the worries I have about AI is that it can encourage our moral passivity in the sense that it's smarter than I am. Therefore, I will just sort of defer to that. We cannot do that. We have to seek cognitive dissonance in anything we're fed, whether it's by AI or another human being who's speaking to us, and say, does this resonate with me? Does this feel right? Because it's very easy to get caught up. We learned during World War II that it's very easy for many millions of people to get caught up in a passionate support of something.
Okay. Well,
That was kind of a downer. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
that was a downer. I would say, though, maybe just to wrap up, thank you, each of you, for sharing your ideas on these topics. And I love that our conversation went in lots of interesting directions together. Why don't we pause and invite some questions, and then we can wrap up at the end. I saw 2 hands at some point. Hopefully you're not freezing. Can you use the microphone? Yeah, thank you.
Hi, sorry for my mid-session interjection. I'm Hebu. I work in machine learning. I'm really curious, actually, how AI could help shape a more positive future. I'm also really curious about how, given that you guys work in building products that are essentially disintermediating face-to-face. So we heard this morning from Esther Perel and Brené Brown that, when we are face-to-face, that intimacy is real. And in a lot of these virtual environments, I think, Michael, you mentioned earlier, we don't see the faces of the people that we might be interacting with. How do you guys think about that dissonance? What ways have you experimented with, bringing the kind of real face of the person on the other side to the children and to the young people playing?
So at Roblox, we are all about trying to figure out how to bring that emotional connection to the communication within Roblox. That said, we would never, ever say that it replaces one-to-one human interaction. I think that there are so many benefits for having real interactions, and I think going back to Michael's point, you need to find a self-awareness and a balance, right? But that said, there are incredible advancements in terms of eye movements. There's face rigging that is happening right now where it mimics your face. You can, overlay your image and it looks like you're blinking. It looks like you're, as you're speaking, your mouth moves, your cheek moves, your brows furrow. And we do know that with that, if I say something derogatory to Jeff, your suit is awful, all of a sudden his face.
I was going to say that.
I was going to say that's a fantastic jacket. Where did you get that? So
his face changes, right? And I know that I may have said something wrong to hurt his feelings. Well, right now there's not that depth in the digital space, but they are getting there. We're getting there to where you can see the water in your eyes if I've started to make you cry. And so what I'm hoping is that as that gets better and better, the forms of communication will deepen, areas of empathy will improve as that technology improves.
Can I push back a little bit on that?
Okay.
Why should we spend millions and millions of dollars to make the technology do only in part what we can do in person?
Okay, because I'll tell you why.
Okay.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because you have a close-knit group of friends in person, but with the platform of Roblox, you're also learning, you have the opportunity to learn from other people who are in Germany, in Japan, and you're sharing cultures, and sometimes it's not feasible to be in person.
Really quick, just to kind of build on that, I don't think that there's, in every game, the necessity or the ability to kind of create this deep personal connection, but there are a lot of design choices that you can make. And I keep coming back to personalization. Whereas if you have a little space, or, I'm reminded of, I played the heck out of Street Fighter 6 last year and this year, and you can create your own avatars to battle each other. Just these kinds of interactions that you have with somebody, and being able to emote quickly on certain emotions that you may be feeling and all that. Those are some ways to kind of like break down those barriers to make it be a little bit more personalized, as well as then outside of the game, right? Community storytelling, highlighting the positive examples so that others can see, and focusing on that. I think those are some things that you can do that don't necessarily have to affect core gameplay itself.
Follow on from that. I'm curious, and I asked this of the Intuition Robotics and Robotics panel the other day. How do you guys balance what you well described as that delicate balance of spending a lot of time in gaming and also spending a lot of time in real life, with the need for growth and the need for metrics such as hours played or user retention or user acquisition? How do you guys think about the ethics of that?
Okay, I'll go. So there, as a public company, there are pressures, right, from Wall Street. And until Wall Street changes and investors stop putting those unrealistic pressures, things are going to be, it's tough to balance, right? But that said, I think that it is up to education, media literacy education, formally integrated into the school system, to be able to, at the very youngest age, to start instilling those healthy habits, right? And it's a little bit like the food pyramid, right? It's a little, when we were little, we all learned about what was the right thing, what was right for your body. But nobody talks about what is that healthy food pyramid for online. And so now we are just starting to build awareness for that. And there are incredible organizations such as NAMLY, which is the National Association for Media Literacy Education, that are doing really, really great things right now. There are a lot of NGOs, there are a lot of nonprofits, there are a lot of organizations that are really, really developing resources that are pushing that level of education. So hopefully the younger generations will start growing up with more self-awareness.
There's also the organization called The Family, right? And that if you can bring these ideas, these values to the child at the earliest possible moment. I've had people say, when should we start teaching media literacy? And I said, the moment your child starts using media. You know, that it begins when they're sitting on your lap watching Sesame Street, for example, right? And you are there, you're physically feeling their responses. You are seeing where they smile, you're seeing where they're scared or confused, and you're also seeing when they lose attention. And so all of this stuff really goes into thinking about how do we work from the inside out. You know, as Tip O'Neill once said, all politics is local, and this is about as local as it gets, is the nuclear family. And I think that that's the way we're going to change things. And that will change the market, because if kids and parents want something different than what's out there, they will go elsewhere, and Wall Street will eventually notice.
I just thank you, Jeff, for switching the slide. We have a QR code on the screen that is a page of links to each organization's respective websites and some other resources. And I know from our organization, the CUNY Center, is working on some design guidance for the community that you might find interesting. It's new and emerging. It's not something that we can just hand off to you today, but look in that space, please. I just want to acknowledge there was one more hand when I asked who else has a question. Can you please, she's up front. Let's see if we can get through at least one and maybe two.
This is pretty tall. So my question was, you're right, I'm not used to these. Okay. So the question was, so a lot of these apps, gaming, social media, are taking advantage of like a lot of psychological hormones, so like dopamine, serotonin, very addictive, you know, things that you can manipulate very easily. And with populations as vulnerable as kids and even seniors, I'm curious, sort of like, we talked about KPIs, daily active users. What are we considering sort of as like your companies are building on and their implications for such an unregulated industry? What are KPIs you're advocating for?
I can jump into that. Keep in mind, we're not like social media or things like that, but we really look at long-term value and it's like we're not looking for like kind of quarterly returns or anything like that. So we want to make games that players could play for years and decades. You know, we're not going to come out with like a new League of Legends 2 or all of that. Which means that when we're actually looking at that, when we want to make design decisions and sort of like bring players back, we have kind of major beats that they know about and can look forward to throughout the year. So we know that our cycles for one game now go through these fluctuations, and we're not trying to max out, you know, and have people like, hey, come back and all of these other kinds of things. Life happens. Most college students go home for the summer, you know, and have to get like an internship or a part-time job. So we know that we're going to see a lull there. But when we're thinking about like those specific KPIs, like the monetary KPI actually follows other KPIs like I trust this company to make the right decision, or this organization is one that I am proud to associate with. So these kind of deeper emotional KPIs actually are leading indicators of monetization later on. And that's just taking a different, longer lens than if you just needed to come out with financial reports every month, for instance.
So the KPIs that you're talking about is what we have to report on because that's what Wall Street expects. But we have a whole nother slew of internal metrics that we track on a quarterly basis, and that has to do with toxicity reporting. Roblox is different because we're not like one game or like two games, we're like millions of games. So it would be impossible for us to get those metrics like on an individual standing. But we can take a look at, what we do is we take a look at toxicity reporting as an aggregate, and different experiences flag then in terms of like, okay, well, wait a minute, we have like 10% more toxicity reporting. What's going on here? We'll deep dive into that. We'll work with the developer to figure out what's going on that front. So we do have different metrics. We have something called a civility index that we measure as well, and that has to do with respect levels, fairness levels, anti-cheat levels. So different metrics that we track to be able to get it at some of the non-traditional metrics.
Do you have a final comment for us, Michael?
I'm just glad you're all here.
Me too.
I'm glad we're having this dialogue, and I think we have
audience.
to keep building on this dialogue, and particularly on the dialogue that we are not adversaries, we're not competitors with each other here. We're all in this ecosystem together, and we are the people we've been waiting for.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for being here with us. And I'm sorry we couldn't have that last question, but we can maybe
We're
chat.
still here. You can come on up.
Thank you so much.